Hello and welcome to another YouTube exclusive episode of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. Much like last week when it was hashtag Smash Running Back Week, this is wide receiver week. We're going to talk to you about all the wide receivers in this class. We just did a YouTube show talking about the entire class. Today, what we're going to focus in on is top 12 wide receiver tiers with an edit by nobody better than at Brock Dynasty. Make sure you guys follow him and my main man, FF Snoog. Jumping right into it. I want to go with that S tier, that smash tier. Snoog, for me, it's McMillan. Tetairoa McMillan, player comp, I like a lot, like a faster Mike Evans, a Drake London plus type upside at 6'5", 212, runs absolutely phenomenal rates, someone that's great with contested catches, true freshman breakout, someone that should be going inside the top 10 NFL draft picks, had an 89.1 PFF grade. He has had back-to-back 1,300 plus yards, and I think he's in a tier of himself. Junty's the 101. All formats right now, I am smashing Tet McMillan as the 102. I think this is the best pedigree, the most high upside that we have of anybody in this class. I already have him ranked as a top 13 dynasty wide receiver day one, and man, do I want to see him go to the Patriots. Snoog, that's that smash tier. You know, we had it with the running backs, just one guys. With the wide receivers, just one guy. But then just like with the running backs, this A tier, which I have as top 12 dynasty wide receiver upside type players, has quite a few guys. Who's your favorite guy at the second of the wide receiver class?
It's Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. I think he has the highest floor in this class at the wide receiver position. I mean, this is the guy playing toe-to-toe with Marvin Harrison Jr. back in 2022, posted his best season, 1,100 plus yards, 3+ yards per route run, 75 plus receptions, 10 touchdowns. Like, this is a guy that has always played with the best of the best. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison Jr. This year, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. So he's a guy always producing in elite wide receiver rooms. That's something I love to look for when I'm grading players. I mean, he posted 106 targets in a season. It was that year, so he's been great. I mean, he had that sophomore breakout, still just 22 years old. I have him graded out as a top 20 pick, comped to like that Amon-Ra St. Brown light, that Jackson Smith-Njigba type, that Golden Tate, one of those type of big power slots that can play all over the field. Wins after the catch, strong hands at the catch point, good route runner, absolutely phenomenal high IQ player that dominates in zone coverage as well, can beat man. I mean, this is a guy that, I mean, he absolutely dominated in his sophomore season alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the Emeka I remember. And he wasn't healthy in his junior season at all. The year Marv went crazy with Kyle McCord. But if you just look at this year, he bounced back in a good way, in a big way, being that safety blanket for Will Howard, that easy guy, that guy that can catch everything across the middle of the field, downfield, in the bubble screen game, whatever it is. So I just think he's one of those guys that is going to be one of the best values in this class when it's all said and done at any position. He's looking like that mid to late round range right now, maybe that early second range for most people, but he's going to be that mid first round pick for me for sure. And I think finding him going to play with his former quarterback in C.J. Stroud on the Houston Texans in that number 2 role behind Nico Collins, or going and playing in the Denver Broncos as Bo Nix number 1. Like, there's so many good landing spots in that range for him, or Phil and Tyreek Hill's shoes alongside Jalen Waddle in Miami. So there's so many spots for him to bring that versatile skill set. So he's just going to be my wide receiver 2 in this class as of today, and we'll jump into the next tier, or the next player in A tier, and that's Luther Burden. So sell us on him.
Yeah, Luther Burden, and it's very close. I mean, if we had said Travis Hunter comes out just as a wide receiver, he's arguably above both of these, or at least above Burden. Luther Burden, the third, someone that you and I both comp to a Jayden Reed plus, a DJ Moore type, 5'11", 208 pounds, just 28 years old, or 21 years old. 28 would be rough, right? We're looking at someone that, you know, he had a sophomore breakout, and in 2023, he was absolutely phenomenal. 86 receptions, 91.0 PFF grade, 1,200 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns. He's someone that just yards after the catch, amazing type player, 3.29 yards per route run. Someone that when you get him the ball in space, big things happen. This junior year dropped off considerably, just over 600 yards. And I think a lot of that really translates out to the offense that it was. Unlike Emeka and Tet, I think he's landing spot dependent on what his ceiling could be. You get him with an elite level coordinator, a Mike McDaniels, a Shanahan, someone like that utilized Debo. He's going to be getting the ball out of the backfield. He's going to be getting bubble screens, quick slants, ways to really utilize him, because I think he's a top 20 to 25 talent. I like him going to the Bucs. I like a lot of opportunities in that area where he's a great football player, phenomenal blocker, someone that's going to be on the field all the time. And I think just like in this class, he's one of those guys, him and the next guy, I think belong in that super flex, 106 to 108-9 range. It's going to be a class that's dominated by running backs, but this is another guy here where you have Travis Hunter as the wide receiver 4 of this class. Arguably could be the wide receiver 2, maybe the 1 if he was just a wide receiver. He's just that good.
Let's talk Travis Hunter. I'm excited. He's one of my favorite prospects and players in this class in general. He is so elite in the athleticism category. I mean, he is one of those players that is like that Garrett Wilson, that Jamar Chase type athlete that just looks like the best athlete on the field at all times. Like, you just can't touch this guy. 6'1", 185, 21 years old, 5-star, very highly recruited prospect. Comes to Colorado, plays both ways in 2023 and 2024. This year, I mean, he was a sophomore breakout last year, but this year he had ridiculous numbers: 122 targets, 96 receptions, 89.1 PFF grade, 1,200 plus yards, 15 total touchdowns, 2.51 yards per route run. The craziest thing about Travis Hunter that I noticed on tape too, he doesn't drop the football. 0 drops in 2023. He posted a 3% drop rate in 2024 this past season on like I said, like over 120 plus targets. So this guy is an absolute freak in the contested catch area too. He had a very high contested catch rate. Release off the line of scrimmage, lightning quick. One of the best releases, if not the best in the class, in my opinion. Very polished player for not playing the position full time. And I think if he decided to go full time, the ceiling's the limit for him. I think he could, when it's all said and done, as a full-time receiver, drafted to play wide out, 0 defense, he could be the best wide receiver in this class, hands down. And I comped him to like a Garrett Wilson light, a Jerry Jeudy type player, because he's very quick. He's very nimble. His burst is incredible in the short area. He wins downfield. He plays big for his size at the catch point like Garrett Wilson did coming out of Ohio State. I think Travis Hunter is one of those players that can be a landmine in rookie drafts. Like, if he does play both ways and you take him in that top 5 to 6 range, it's going to be a trap. So I'm just grading him and talking about him right now as if he's a wide receiver prospect. I don't know what he's going to do in the draft, but good thing we'll have clarity before the draft, before we have our rookie drafts, on what he's going to do and be, which will help us adjust our rookie rankings. But as of today, I'm just treating him as a wide receiver on this show. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, he would be a 1B to test 1A for me if he's a full-time wide receiver.
Then we drop into our B tier. Our B tier, we did this with the running backs as well, where the B tier here, we're looking at guys that have top 24 upside in the NFL, as top 24 dynasty wide receivers. For me, I prefer Tre Harris. There's another guy in this tier that we're going to talk about, but Tre Harris, unlike the other guys, 6'3", 210, had a little bit later of a breakout. I think he's someone that's going to be a lot of mock drafts. I see him going round 1. He's at least going to go early round 2, in the NFL draft. 102 targets, 64 receptions. Before his injury, he was looking phenomenal. He was number 1 against zone, number 2 against man in PFF grades. 5.15 yards per route run. That's insane.
Crazy.
17 plus yards per carry, 7.17 yards after the catch. This is someone that, I see that we've talked a little bit about a Michael Thomas light, a Cedric Tillman plus. I think this guy could end up being the steal of your rookie draft because he's fallen down boards, and I think we're going to see a lot of big things from Tre Harris. Landing spot is going to be huge, but the upside on this guy is phenomenal. So make sure you guys, write that down. Make sure you guys are putting him in your draft queues, getting yourself set up. Also, make sure you guys are subscribing to the Smash Accept, Patreon and YouTube page. YouTube page has been blowing up lately. We also have a Patreon where you guys can come in. We'll give you rookie draft help. All of our rankings are in there. All of our, access to myself, Snoog, and right now, Snoog, over 520 guys talking shop 24/7. No better place, no better community to Smash. Speaking of Smash, I like Tre Harris. You like another guy here in this range who's also got a very high ceiling.
Yeah, it's Tez Johnson for me from Oregon, and I definitely have Tre Harris 5. I think Tre Harris is going to be a round 1 pick when it's all said and done, is that fourth kind of receiver going off the board. But Tez Johnson's going to be a guy that I think goes in that early day 2 range.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Tank Dell type of player, in my opinion, and I think Tank Dell, Jordan Addison, Devontae Smith, all these smaller build wide receivers having a lot of success through the first couple of years of their careers is going to be good for Tez Johnson's draft capital and hope and outlook. Kind of like if he falls into a range with a dynamic offensive coordinator, a dynamic coaching staff, kind of like maybe a Sean McVay offense to replace Cooper Kupp, or one of these type of offenses that use a lot of slot receivers, use a lot of these route runners, these quick moving players like Tez Johnson. But I mean, he's a guy that he had that sophomore breakout. He is a 5th-year declare. He played in college. He played at Troy for 3 years. Good play at Troy. As soon as he transferred to Oregon, and it's funny to say, little side story, but he is super close with Bo Nix. He lived with him. He's basically like a brother to Bo Nix. Lived with him for a while. He came to Oregon, met up with Bo Nix again, and they absolutely took the storm. I mean, 1,182 yards, 90-plus receptions, 100-plus targets in back-to-back seasons in 2023 and 2024, with and without Bo Nix. So he wasn't a product of Bo Nix. Bo Nix left, and he was great again. He was the best guy on Oregon. That was the number 1 team before they got absolutely steamrolled by Ohio State. But very natural route runner, good separator, great player after the catch. 8.5 yards after catch per reception was his best. 10 total touchdowns in back-to-back seasons. He posted 3.4 plus yards per route run in back-to-back seasons as well. I mean, 3.52 is his best. Guy that had 80 plus receptions in back-to-back seasons. Just a very good production-based profile, and a guy that when you watch the film, quick release off the line of scrimmage, good route runner, natural separator, fits today's NFL very well. He's my wide receiver 6 in this class, and people are going to be low on him again because of the size, probably because they want to just talk about some of these other guys. But from a talent perspective, there's not 7 wide receivers better than him. There's 6, maybe 5. There is not 6 or 7, though. There's just 5,
and
if that.
The wide receiver 7 I have in the same tier. A lot of people, and I know you have him in the tier below as well, but Elic Ayomanor is someone that I think, honestly, very competitive, nuanced wide receiver. He has great size. You know, he's 6'1", over 210, so he's got a strong build. Someone that has elite spatial awareness, someone that gets open when it comes to zones. You look at him, 2.33 yards per route run, 2 seasons over 100 plus targets. This is out of this group, out of those 3 guys. If you told me he went to the right system, I think he has star potential. I think he has top 24, maybe even all 3 of these guys. If they go to the right landing spot, have top 18 dynasty upside. It's just the draft is going to be everything for these 3 guys. It
reminds me of 2023 a lot. That 2023 class when like Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, all these guys like Puka, they all went in that day 2, day 3 range, and they all got perfect landing spots and ended up being good.
And Ayomanor, it's interesting because he's you said 86% on the outside, but I see him at the next level. His explosive quickness, his way to get in and out of routes, you know, his variety of release footwork. I think he could be a power slot in the NFL if he gets to the right spot. You know what I mean? So I think he's versatile, and I kind of like him as the last guy in this tier or the next tier down. Moving into the following tier. So far we have 1 guy in tier 1, 3 in tier 2, 3 in tier 3, maybe 4, depending on how you look at it. And then we have tier C, and tier C is a wide variety. And I want to kind of quick hitter these guys because these shows are a little bit quicker, just to kind of give you guys some insight, give you, some information so you guys can make more educated smash accept type draft principles. We get into that C tier, and we're looking at guys. These are complementary wide receivers. These are guys that are wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s. Landing spot's going to be huge. Draft capital is going to be huge. But there's one guy you like in particular out of that group. Sell me on Jalen Royals.
Yeah, I when I was looking through this tier and looking at these guys, I'm looking for the highest upside guy. I think it's Jalen Royals. I think he's the best athlete. He's the most explosive after the catch. He had a season with 1,000 plus yards, 15 touchdowns, 21 years old. He had 2 seasons with 99 plus targets. He had 70 plus receptions in a season, 7.9 yards after catch per reception. That explosive yak player. I saw a lot of Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed type on his tape. Kind of similar prospects as like a Rashee Rice to that yak guy coming out of SMU, like another team that wasn't this big top Power 5 team, kind of that more underdog type program. But I mean, 3+ yards per route run in a season. Like Jalen Royals to me is a guy that you're going to get in space. He's like a better Malachi Corley, a more complete, better Malachi Corley, in my opinion, better yak player, like more explosive. He's probably not as nimble and as elusive as Malachi was coming out, but some of my comps for him was Rashi Rice, Malachi Corley, Jaden Reed type prototype, but he's great downfield too. That's kind of, he's not just a yak guy. He's good downfield. He's good in the vertical game. He's got some speed behind him, good build, 6 foot, 205 pounds. So he's a guy that I kind of really liked on tape at first glimpse.
For me, my wide receiver 9 of this class, I have him a little bit higher as Isaiah Bond. I know you have him comped as a Wan'Dale Robinson because of the size, 5'11", 180, 20 years old, junior declare, someone that, broke out as a sophomore, 75 targets, 49 receptions. I see him as transferring from Alabama over to Texas, someone that has some deep threat capabilities, someone that really has the ability to accelerate, get to the next level. I think, again, very similar to what we're talking about in this area. Landing spot's going to be huge, getting people in space. Another guy that had 2.02 yards per route run. We're making sure we're looking to get into that. So I think Isaiah Bond, I'm seeing a lot of people with draft capital because of the speed, potentially running in the 4.3s, could push him into early round 2, maybe even late round 1, which would really rise his stock. We talked a lot about last show with the other Texas wide receivers, being buried a little bit. I think Isaiah Bond has had tons of competition, could be a better pro than he was in college.
Yeah, the next guy here I think has the highest floor out of this tier for sure, and he's a guy that I could see jumping into the next tier with Tez and Tre Harris with good draft capital, because I think the draft process is going to like him. It's Xavier Restrepo from Miami. I mean, back-to-back seasons with 1,100+ yards, 90+ targets in both those seasons. He had 2.76 yards per route run this past year. I mean, 89 PFF grade. He's a very high floor player. My comps for him, Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman. I see a lot of that kind of getting the dirty work done, good hands through traffic, catching the ball in contact, just a good route runner, space creator, slot type player. Senior breakout, which isn't something you love to see, but his 4th and 5th year at Miami were both great. Like I said, in that 1,000+ range in both years. He had 119 targets, 85 receptions in his best seasons. Just a guy, I mean, good yak player, 7.3 yards after catch per reception. Just another guy that good slot player, kind of like a Tez Johnson light type player coming out. I don't think he's as explosive and as good as Tez Johnson, but he's kind of that more built, like bigger frame, 180, 190 pound slot receiver than a Tez Johnson. So that's why I could see him being like the wide receiver 7 in this class when it's all said and done. But he's just a guy. He scored a lot of touchdowns, 11 total touchdowns his best season, found the end zone, did the dirty work, was Cam Ward's #1 guy. I think he's a just high floor player. So let's jump into Jayden Higgins on this next guy.
Yeah, Jayden Higgins is a matchup nightmare. I mean, he's someone that is 6'4", 215 pounds. He's 23 years old, so he's a 5th-year declare, so he's a little bit older. I want to see what he does at the Senior Bowl. But 130 targets, 87 receptions. That's another thing we really got to pay attention to with guys that are, I believe Restrepo as well, as guys that are going to be at the Senior Bowl are going to get a little bit of an extra bump here, and that's our next threshold. When we get to the Senior Bowl, guys' values are going to kick up. But 10 total touchdowns, 3.0 yards per route run, 3 straight seasons with 80+ targets. So, I mean, Jayden Higgins, I think, will be moving up draft boards for people wanting that bigger body wide receiver. We have him as a DJ Chark type player, which, if you pay attention to DJ Chark with the Jaguars, that was a different beast. We're not talking about DJ Chark now, but he had a lot of upside. And we got one guy moving into the next tier. We got 11 guys in those top 3 tiers. D tier, you're just looking at a complimentary piece, another guy that could, be a fill-in on bye weeks, but we get down to that D tier. Give me your top guy in D tier.
Yeah, my wide receiver 12 in this class, he's someone that's very fun. I liked watching him a lot at UNLV. It's Ricky White, and he was the guy at UNLV. I mean, he's a guy, I have him comped out pretty similar, like ceiling to floor comps is like Will Fuller, Jalen Tolbert type player, 6'1", 185, 190. But he takes the top off defenses with his vertical speed, 88 receptions in a best season, 1,487 yards in his best season. He's posted a season with 3.0 yards per route run. He's had 2 seasons with 120+ targets. So, like, when I'm looking at these type of receivers and we start getting into that kind of that day 3, that late day 2 range, I'm looking for producers, guys that were their entire offense, guys with speed, guys with versatility, good yards per route run numbers, guys that just flat out came out and produced, Ricky White's one of those guys for me. I mean, he was very well rounded, 6.6 yards after catch per reception. His best season was 11 touchdowns all across the board. I mean, he had 3 seasons with 135, or he had 2 seasons with 120 plus targets, 1 season with 135 targets. So just the guy at UNLV, and he was a big reason why they had a lot of success this year.
Yeah, some other guys potentially in the D tier: Savion Williams, Ty Felton, Torrey Horton. It's going to be a fun class dominated by running backs, but we wanted to give you guys some information there on those wide receivers. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.